Exposed. See how we expose the sneaky tricks used by a prosecutor and expert to fool the jury into thinking a man was guilty of murder, when they used a bait and switch on the jury. Breaking, trickery and false testimony used by a prosecutor and expert in the 2005 Vern Braswell murder trial, was employed to gain conviction. Medical examiner tricked the jury by giving the wrong criteria for ruling out defense's manner of death. A review of the expert testimony from a controversial former Shelby County Assistant Medical Examiner, Dr. Joye Carter, from the 2005 Vern Braswell murder trial, reveals that Dr. Carter employed tricks and false testimony regarding the manner of death, to help prosecutors secure a murder conviction in the high-profile case in Memphis, Tennessee. It has been previously shown that Dr. Carter lied under oath and committed perjury while testifying in the Braswell murder case, to hide disciplinary action taken against her for illegal behavior, and now there's evidence that Carter also lied under oath on a second occasion during the case, when trying to help prosecutors on the manner of death. Before the Vern Braswell murder case, Dr. Joye Carter's long-documented history included not only being fined, but also facing the loss of her license, losing 2 whistleblower lawsuits, allegations of falsifying autopsy reports, allegations of asking employees to falsify autopsy reports, playing favorites to help police and prosecutors secure wrongful murder convictions, firing employees who reported illegal activities in her office, losing the body of an infant, and cremating the wrong body. Vern Braswell was charged with first-degree murder in the death of his wife Sheila, in 2004. The wife was discovered deceased in their jacuzzi, after complaining about aches, pains, and not feeling well. Medical examiner Dr. Joye Carter ruled Sheila's death a result of manual strangulation. Braswell testified, and another witness who participated in intimate acts with the Braswells corroborated, that they frequently engaged in erotic asphyxiation during intimacy. After being detained and questioned by the homicide department following Sheila's death, Braswell was let go because, as police testified, there did not appear to be any noticeable injuries to her, anything that you would typically see in someone who's been murdered. It was only after the Shelby County medical examiner, Dr. Joye Carter, ruled the death a homicide, due to manual strangulation, that Braswell was charged with first-degree murder. The defense theory was that the Braswells often engaged in erotic asphyxia during intimacy, and it may have been a likely contributor to Miss Braswell's death. Dr. Carter's tricks and false testimony. During her testimony, when Dr. Carter was asked about her knowledge of erotic asphyxia, Carter began her trickery when she proceeded to describe autoerotic asphyxia, which is when one person chokes themselves to gain pleasure. This is not what Dr. Carter was asked. Nonetheless, Carter then described the criteria for determining a death due to autoerotic asphyxia, such as looking for pornographic material, choking marks from a rope, belt, etc., and an escape mechanism. Carter said that in her opinion, Sheila's death was not from autoerotic asphyxia. This was never a claim by the defense, nor was it an issue at trial. But when Dr. Carter was then asked about how to make a ruling on a death from erotic asphyxia, in other words, when couples choke each other during intimacy, Carter's criteria was, the person that survives usually gives an explanation as to what they were doing, and you see if that's consistent. When asked could the death have been from erotic asphyxia, in other words, could this have been a death from a couple choking each other during intimacy, Dr. Carter tricked the jury by lying. Carter pulled a bait and switch and responded to the question with, "There was no evidence of any ligature mark. This is the same as a rope or belt mark that you usually find in autoerotic cases," even though this is not what Carter was asked, nor was this a claim during trial. Dr. Carter had previously established the criteria for determining the death as, the person that survives usually gives an explanation as to what they were doing, and you see if that's consistent, but that's not how Dr. Carter answered. Instead of using her criteria for erotic asphyxia, or a couple choking each other during intimacy, she used the answers for autoerotic asphyxia to trick the jury and to give false testimony and false criteria to rule out the cause of death theorized by the defense. Dr. Carter never ruled out the defense theory on the manner of death. This bait and switch false testimony by the expert helped the prosecution in securing a murder conviction against Braswell. Braswell's expert was Dr. Mark Schwartz, the director of the world-renowned Masters and Johnson Clinic in St. Louis, Missouri, known for its sexual and relational therapy clinic and extensive history of research in this area. Dr. Schwartz testified that based on an extensive amount of research and clinical-based criteria, he found the death of Mrs. Braswell to be consistent with erotic asphyxia. However, the damage by Dr. Carter's false testimony had already been done and it cut too deep for the defense to recover. Braswell was found guilty of second-degree murder based on the false testimony of the prosecution's expert witness who was responsible for Braswell being initially charged with murder. Of note, during one of Braswell's appeals, Braswell also presented the testimony of a second expert, Dr. George Nichols, who once served as the chief medical examiner for the state of Kentucky. Dr. Nichols, like Dr. Schwartz, also determined that the death was consistent with an accidental death from erotic asphyxia, making him the second expert to arrive at that conclusion. During one of Braswell's appeals, a woman who had a history of participating in intimacy with the Braswells also testified about participating and witnessing the Braswells engaging in this practice. Shelby County Criminal Court Judge Paula Skahan preferred the testimony of Dr. Joye Carter over the testimony of Dr. Schwartz and Dr. Nichols, as well as over the first-hand testimony from an intimate partner of the Braswells. To the judge, this and other evidence of innocence testimony didn't matter. Trial tricks at their best.